Arya, are you certain about divorcing Nick? Mrs. Fusco questioned me over the phone, her tone laced with worry. Jaden is still so little. He requires you. I was positioned by the stove, one hand propped on the counter, and I responded composedly. I wed Nick due to an agreement. Jaden is 5 now. He can manage on his own. He no longer has a need for me. I was deeply indebted to Mrs. Fusco. To repay her kindness, I consented to a 5-year marriage contract. 5 years of pretending to be a family, acting as the ideal Ambrose wife, taking care of Nick and his son. But the contract expires tomorrow. At long last, I'll be free. Before she could reply, I felt a sudden sharp pain on my forehead. Something solid struck me. A stone clattered onto the tiled floor. My hands instantly shot up to cover the cut. Blood trickled down my face as I turned to see Jaden standing just outside the window. His arms were folded, his eyes narrowed with contempt. Tattling to Grandma again. Seems like the little lesson I gave you wasn't sufficient. I ought to be knocking you down, to keep my mom company. I gaped at him, shocked, as all that had occurred an hour ago came flooding back. It was my 25th birthday. I'd never celebrated one before, so I treated myself to a small cake, but I accidentally put on my late sister's dress, and the sight of it sent Jaden into a fury. He grabbed the cake and scrawled "RIP" across it with black paint. Then, as a final touch, he stuck white chrysanthemums on top, flowers meant for the departed. My birthday cake had been transformed into a funeral offering. He laughed, pleased with his handiwork. You think you're worthy of a birthday? If it weren't for you, my mom wouldn't be dead, and we wouldn't have a broken family. Remember this, from now on, today isn't your birthday, it's your death day. Then, with everyone watching, he slammed the cake into my face and ruined the only day I'd been anticipating. I didn't shout. I didn't weep. I simply walked to the kitchen in silence. He trailed me in, irate that I hadn't reacted. Jaden wasn't content. What? Are you upset now? You're so childish, he sneered. I swear, when I grow up, the first thing I'll do is kick you out of this house. I looked at him, the child I'd invested 5 years of love and effort into, and felt my heart sink. I was so weary. You won't have to, I told him quietly. I'm leaving this house tomorrow. Then I walked out and went to the living room to clean the wound on my forehead. I was bandaging my bleeding forehead when I heard the sound of glass shattering from upstairs. A shiver ran down my spine. I rushed up the stairs and found the only memento my mother had left me, a jade bracelet shattered into glistening fragments. The shards sparkled under the light, piercing my heart. I dropped to my knees and picked them up one by one, cautious not to cut myself. I hadn't cried when Nick's parents made my life miserable for years. I hadn't cried when Nick treated me like a substitute for my sister, using me for stress relief and nothing more. I didn't even cry when Jaden publicly humiliated me with the cake. But now, looking at the broken bracelet my mom left me, I broke down. The tears flowed rapidly, hot and uncontrollable. That bracelet was the last thing I had from someone who truly loved me. Jaden stood nearby, watching me fall apart. Then, he sneered. Hurts, doesn't it? Having the one thing you care about destroyed? That's what you get for killing my mom. Now I'll destroy everything you care about. Murderer? That's when I finally snapped. I grabbed him by the arm and pulled him forward. You pick all the pieces up now and put them back together. Surprise flashed in his eyes, perhaps because he'd never seen me in such a state. But before he could react, a hand pushed me forcefully, sending me back to the ground. What on earth is wrong with you? Nick glared at me with bloodshot eyes. It's just a bracelet. How could you lose your temper with a kid over it? I sat there on the floor, stunned, gazing up at the man I'd once promised to love. To him, it was just a cheap piece of jewelry.